Okay. Word. Whoa, wait a minute. Hold up now. This is the 25th episode of UBI. So it's the quarter century episode. It's
So if
the
UBI, like every episode was 1 year, it will
Mhm.
be, and it
UBI.
went straight through law school from undergrad, it will be graduating this year.
It would be graduating. It could rent a car legally in the US. you know?
I mean, some people get married by 25,
Yeah. You could be in a
have,
very serious relationship or possibly
have it be a
engaged.
parent,
Yeah, it could definitely be a parent. It could have gone to war and came back.
like done like 4 tours.
Yep. Wow.
Man,
So UBI, 25 years old, or we're gonna call it 25 years old. That's impressive, And I was actually recently listening to some of our old episodes, just kind of like skimming through, um, and I'm glad they're there. It's something that we'll
it will
always
live
have. It'll be
forever.
very, yeah, it'll be interesting to like go back like years from now, even going back like months removed from it. Like there's some stuff I forget we talked about, and it's just like it's interesting. So, um,
Yeah, I think it will. It's almost like I haven't really gone back and listened to them, but I remember maybe around the 10th, 12th episode, especially around the elections last year. I remember thinking um, around the elections last year that, and I wonder, you know, a year from then, especially some of the political things that we talked about, like the more political things, how um, thoughts might have changed over time, and just you know how people evolve, right? In terms of like I just remember thinking like this will be a good chronicling of that, like where you have something concrete
right,
that you
exactly.
said that you're like, okay, you know what, I said this or I believe this, and just over time because of life experiences or whatever, and things have changed, or maybe they don't.
Right.
So
And also just the world changes too. So it's interesting. I'll listen to other people's podcasts that were recorded before the pandemic. And it's funny hearing people say, oh, 2020 is going to be a big year for me. I hope to go here
yeah,
and travel here and do X, Y, and Z. And these people have no idea what's going to happen. And, it's interesting. It's also interesting to listen to podcasts at different points in the pandemic. So in the very beginning, like how people were thinking about it, and they were so they had no idea what was going on,
they were
right?
so sure that, oh, by March or April
Right.
this
You
will be
know,
done.
we'll be back in school because we had no concept of being locked down for over a year. Like that was just an unfathomable thing. And now it's just a normal, it's so normal. But I was also um interested in hearing that people who I know who have gone to Florida and other states in the US, like they are just acting as if everything's normal. Certain parts of the country, I mean, they just respond so wildly differently. And that's going to be weird to look at in when we look back on history too, I think, how people
Yeah, but
reacted.
yeah, like places like Florida, I don't know. I mean, when we had that episode that we had um Caris
Hmm.
on, and
Yeah.
she was talking about Atlanta, right?
And how they, nobody wore masks in the grocery store, and if you could, but it was optional, and most people just opted not to. Whereas, like,
Exactly.
you know,
So,
so
so yeah, like
you're in Spain though right now. So what are people doing there? Are they wearing masks? Sorry, Elijah's just making sure he's getting his grub on for those who can't see it, and it's fine. He was like, I haven't really eaten today. I'm like, dude, it's late here.
Yeah,
You
it
haven't
is
even.
8 p.m. down here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So people are wearing masks. It's really, it has really been weird because you do not see anybody's face. Like, it's just, even when people go out jogging or whatnot, like, I mean,
Mhm.
of course, you will see some people kind of like crack it down a little bit,
Right.
but everyone has masks on. The only folks that are not allowed to ask, I mean, not allowed, but like that are excused from having masks are kids under the age of, I believe, 5,
Okay.
something like that. But outside of that, you see people jogging,
Wear a
people have
mask.
masks on.
Yeah.
Like, you have you have the cops basically driving around. I haven't seen them kind of like, I was going to use harass. Can you hear me just fine? Like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I was going to use the word harass, but but that's not. But
But
but I haven't seen them like really. The only time that I would say I've seen them kind of like talk to people or break stuff up is really, there was one of these plazas where it just seemed like folks were congregating.
mhm.
Um, Somebody, like, you have all these street performers or whatnot, like, and people were just congregating. They were wearing their masks, but they weren't distancing. So there was a time where the cops kind of like, I saw the cops kind of like got people to disperse and that kind of thing. But outside of that, everyone is pretty compliant. And I mean, I just remember, and I've been here for a couple of weeks now, and every time I mean, there have been times when I would see protesters as well, right? And people protesting, um, that gyms should be open, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Uh, they will have their placards, their posters. Basically, we say things like "ejercicio es salud," basically like, exercising is health, or that kind of thing. And what they're protesting is that why the heck do we have restaurants open or some
Mhm.
establishments but not others? That kind of.
Right.
And that is actually a discussion that I think is welcome, right? And I think, you can say that it's kind of reasonable for someone to ask, like, hey, why don't we have gyms open? I mean, the way you have it at restaurants where there is limited capacity, whatever, you can say, hey, gyms can be 50%, 25%, whatever you want to say.
Right.
But either way, that is the kind of debate that people have. People don't have mask burning contests here, or like,
Mhm.
it's not a question of, oh, is the pandemic real or not? No, everybody is past that. Like, nobody's
Right.
nobody is debating whether it's real or not. So it's just there's the policy thing of whether, okay, who should stay open, what is considered essential business.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting, and because I had read in high somewhere in the U.S., maybe it's in Idaho, Montana, I don't know, where they had a mask burning thing. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
come on, man, like, you people need to grow up from this. And
Yeah. Yeah. That is a debate you should have and should be welcome. I actually went to the gym for the first time um this past Wednesday. Like
uh,
our local gym. They have it at like some limited capacity. I'm not sure the percentage. You actually have to call ahead just to
to
be in
book.
to like book within like a 75-minute block. And I didn't know this. I just walked up and I had actually I stopped. I'm sorry. I didn't stop paying my membership fee this whole time. Um,
What?
yeah,
You just wasted like $1,000?
yeah, I did But for
Jeez.
me, I did it on purpose. Like I knew, that they were struggling and they've been holding me down for like 5 years or whatever. So
Got it.
I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just keep it going. And so they
Is
actually,
this a is this a small business or one of those LA fitness type gyms?
it's a local
Okay,
franchise. So they have like 4 locations in Philly. And
got
yeah, I've
it.
been going there since 2015, ever since I moved here. And I've always enjoyed their gym. I saw Kevin Hart at their gym before. Random stuff, but I've had a lot of good memories there. But so the first time I went back, um, they like kind of gave me this. They lowered my rate because kind of like as a thank you for holding us down through the pandemic or whatever. And uh, and I went back and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna walk in now. It's like, oh, you have to book to go. And I was like, wait, really? And he's like, is this your first time back since the pandemic? I was like, yeah, I haven't been here since March, last March. But because I think, we had like a conversation before, like they were cool about, it, and they're like, we're actually, a couple people didn't show up, so you can just go in. But it was weird, man. It was a little eerie because the
I
capacity
can
was
imagine.
super limited. So at one point, it was just me in a mask and like on a treadmill. Like, I was like, I kind of looked around, like, is anyone else here? It was kind of creepy. Um, it was definitely different, and I only did it because it was like raining outside, and I was trying to go running, and I was like, let me just go to the gym. But it could definitely be done, and I felt safe, and I've actually gotten the first shot, the Moderna shot. Did I tell you that?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
told me you were knocked out. Like that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
you were
yeah. I was
supposed to.
knocked out for like 36 hours, but
Jeez.
um but yeah, I felt, I'm fine with them as long as you have your mask. I think that's fine. I'm not too concerned. And then once I'm fully vaccinated, I really will be fine, But yeah, I think that's something that's a thing that's a discussion that they should have over there because as long as you're doing it safely and if people are willingly going in, it's not like anyone's going into the gym and they don't know that they're there. You and these people have agreed to the risks or whatever to go into the gym. It's not like you're grabbing random people off the street and throwing them in there. So you can have them sign whatever they need to sign, but if they want to
I
work out,
mean,
let them work out.
yeah. So that's one part. I mean, the thing is, restaurants are open, but with limited capacity. But but a ton of restaurants out here anyway have outside sitting areas. So like just outside, and that's I mean it's always nice, right, to just sit outside by the sidewalk and
Yeah.
and and so from that perspective, I mean there aren't really people dining inside restaurants that I've seen. I Whenever I would go out, like I don't eat a lot at the restaurants anyway. Um, but whenever I do, I will just sit outside, and if you just peep inside, you probably see 2 or 3 people in there.
Hmm.
For the most part, everyone, people just, I mean, like when you have nice weather, like 65-degree weather, like why the heck would you want to be sitting inside anyway?
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
even without a pandemic, it's kind of like, nah, if you have space outside, I'm sitting outside. So,
Right. You know what people are doing here? Like even when it's cold outside, they're like creating these uh tent
that
things, or
has
they're
haters.
yeah, they almost look like little mini trailers.
Yeah.
And like when you have restaurants, they put them on the sidewalks. So it's like a covering on outdoor seating because in Philly there's a lot of seating that's on like the sidewalks outside of restaurants. So they have
Mhm.
like they built like these little boxed trailer heated things where people were eating outside all throughout the wintertime. There was at no point people weren't dining in the city. And sometimes it would be like 30 degrees and they would just be in these like heated tents or whatever, or they would just have heat, or some of them would just have heated lamps and they wouldn't even have tents and people would still be out. I mean, that's like how desperate people were to have some semblance of normalcy and just hang out with people. So I thought that was like, I didn't really, I ate out once under a heated lamp during the winter. But yeah, it was wild to see that.
I mean, it's interesting how, the pandemic has been a catalyst for a new industry and a new way of doing things. Like, I don't know if I will ever go on a plane again without wearing a mask, for example.
You're just done. Yeah,
Like, I mean, maybe, but I just don't like it because is there really going to be a time when they're like, okay, COVID-19 is now done, eliminated?
right.
Maybe, I mean, there's been times when some of these other viruses they just disappeared or something, but um but oftentimes I think what happens is they just morph to something else. They may not be as deadly and people just move on with their lives, but just given, at least not anytime soon. I don't, you know, I don't,
Hmm.
I, I don't know. Like I just can't envision it yet, where I'm gonna go into some space, like 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 an airport or something. Like especially, I'm not an anti-masker, right? Masks are not hurting me. So
Hmm.
so um, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just theater. It doesn't really do anything.
I think some of it's not doing anything. I do think like when people are like walking around outside near no one and they have their mask on, it's like, that doesn't really do anything, right? Like, and it happens a lot here. Like, there's a lot of people who just walk around in masks outside, and it's like you're not near anyone. You're just doing it because
I
it
mean,
is part of it is theater.
yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe part of it is theater. Maybe part of it is just that this is the new normal. Like you just wearing it, so it's just part of your attire now.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like I
you
got my
know,
cell phone, my keys, my mask.
yeah, it is. I mean, there'd be times when I will go out and I forget my mask. I will freak out. Like,
Everybody judges you.
like, oh shit, I forgot my mask.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's the other part is sometimes when you hear people cough, I think people have gotten over that now. At least,
I sneezed on an airplane, man. I was terrified. I thought everybody was gonna kill me. I thought they were
when
gonna
was
throw me
this?
out the plane. I couldn't help it. I tried to like sneeze. You know when you like hold it in? I did that. I tried to make it as silent as possible.
Was it one of those like vicious?
It was like, I'm trying to hold it in. I didn't like, ah, phew! I didn't like spit everywhere. It was the kind where, you try to close your mouth. But even still, I'm like, uh-oh. But nobody cared. I don't know and also people were in headphones. So I don't even know if they heard me, but I got really self-conscious about it. I think just Geneva heard or like felt it and she stared at me. You know, like what guy? But, um, yeah, I don't know. On planes, they say that the circulation of the air on planes is supposed to be one that helps with preventing spread of diseases, which makes sense to be honest. I don't know. Like at first, I was like, I think the American Airlines just made that up. That sounds very convenient that their air for some reason is special air, and you should come on their planes. But that actually makes a lot of sense if you think about it, even before the pandemic, because you have people flying from all over, and it's in their best interest for people not to die of infectious diseases on their
Nah,
airline.
it's not in their best interest. It's in their best interest to make as much money as possible. So to cut
But to
costs.
do that, people can't be dying on your airplanes because then people won't fly in your airplanes. That's what I'm saying.
So, but that's not how infectious diseases work, though. Like infectious diseases, you will catch it. It wouldn't really manifest until later. Like the flight is done. Like so, it's not
Right, but if they find out all
it's
these
not like a
people,
tranquilizer. Like you think, if
no,
you
but
catch
I'm
if,
saying like if they find out like that half the flight got this infectious disease, they can kind of trace it back to, hey, weren't we
bro,
all on
it
this flight?
happens. It happens all the freaking time. Like I can tell you how many times I've flown before, and I get out and I have the sniffles. So I mean that happens to many people. All the it
Yeah.
happens. But what I think the issue is just that they haven't been deadly diseases.
Hmm.
So there will be things that people just pass around anyway. You pass around in a crowded, like if you go to the movies, it's kind of like the same thing.
Hmm.
This idea that they have this special air, like,
Hmm.
I mean, I think when they say they have a special filter or whatever the heck they say, I mean, it may be true. I'm just skeptical. You know,
Yeah. Well, they were saying it's like the air that they have at the doctors, like they do the same thing.
man,
Again, I don't
please,
know how this stuff works, but I do know they both are very cold and uncomfortable places, and they do feel like there's a different kind of sterile air.
man. Look,
But
I'm not saying it's a lie. I'm just saying
you
I am I am
like
skeptical.
like everything, you're
Yeah.
skeptical.
So when the airlines, I mean, I read some of those things. They're coming around here. They talk about this is HEPA filters, blah blah blah. I'm like, sure, it's probably true. I mean, but I can't say it's 100% because
Hmm.
why? I mean, isn't this what big business have conditioned us to be in America anyway, where they will say X and then you find out. I mean, how many times has that happened?
Right. Yeah.
So, so
Who knows?
I don't, I wouldn't say it's 50-50. I would just put it at 70-30. Like, I
Hmm.
wouldn't be shocked if a few months or a year down the line, they say, you know what, we did some tests and we found out that it's not effective. Like,
Right. As
what
soon as the
I,
pandemic's over, they're like, actually, we did some tests, and these scientists did blah blah blah, and found out that wasn't actually true. But you felt better when you were flying, right? So,
I
um,
wasn't thinking about that at all. Like, I wasn't even thinking, I was just thinking, look, if you I think what is more important is, when you flew, I don't know how full your plane was, so maybe that's one thing.
I remember the first time I flew in the pandemic. It was actually in in August, and I and I remember the on the tickets you bought online or whatever, they were advertising that it's at reduced capacity, and we're taking all these precautions. Man, as soon as we got on that plane, we were elbow to elbow, bro. Like there were so many people on that plane. I was like, these people don't give a damn about our lives, and they don't. And it's
Yeah,
a business. They're trying to make money.
so those are the same guys that you said have the special air, right?
Right. No, I
Please give me a
agree.
break.
Yeah. It's
Like,
like
they pack people shoulder to
like
shoulder.
peanuts. They packed us like peanuts. They didn't give a damn. I mean, everyone had a mask on, of course, but yeah, they were like, you be Aight. Like we were trying to make that money, like especially after all those months where nobody was flying. Are you kidding me? Um it's like we will double book. We will be sitting on people's laps. So yeah,
Yeah,
it was an experience, but they're corporations, and if anything, if we learned anything in business school, it's that it's about the bottom line, and they got to get more people in. So but I mean, it was fine. I had my mask on the whole time, but I will say um in August we went to LAX, and it was a ghost town because I think California had recently had another shutdown because they were wilding out too much and too many people were getting sick. So when we were in LAX in August, it was like nobody was there and nothing. There was one place to get something to eat, and that was it. And it was odd because we had been in LAX 6 months prior in February, and it was packed like normal. It was packed at like midnight. So it was eerie. It was weird.
yeah, man. I mean, so anyway, let's switch topics a little bit. So I have one question to ask you, right?
Hmm.
What makes you really happy?
Wow, that's what makes me really happy. I like sesame chicken. We've talked about it before, but that's something that makes me really happy. Sesame chicken. Um, I've loved it since I was 3 years old. I loved it so much when I was eating it when I was three that my mom had to pull me away from it. I was eating that much. So she had to pull me away because I was doing too much damage. So every time, I don't know why, but it's always been like a huge comfort food of mine. So I really like just, you know, relaxation and eating that. And it's like comforting. Let's see, what else makes me happy that's not food? I love performing. I love performing comedy. I love performing and having a really good set and feeling the laughter of the audience and feeling like I'm connecting with people. Um, yeah, I don't know. But
Mm.
yeah, that sense of accomplishment. What about you? What makes you what are some things that make you really happy?
I mean, there've been a few things that, you know, you can say watching soccer, if the team that I support wins, etc., etc. But just in terms of day to day stuff, one of the stuff. So I'm not like the biggest, like, outgoing. I'm not the most outgoing person, right? Like in terms of being gregarious or meeting people and being
Hmm.
an extrovert or whatever. I'm just fine being private and doing whatever. What makes me happy though sometimes is when you find out that you didn't have to do the shit that you thought you were gonna do, like you thought you were supposed to.
Woof, woof, woof. Woof.
Hey, man, you like if you maybe like you try to like meet up with somebody new,
Yeah.
and you're like, like, man. I mean, for me, it's not like you stress. I don't know. It's just this tiny like maybe
So
it's
the
stress, maybe,
cancellation of plans where
and
you
then it's
thought you
always
had
just like like let's something came up, let's cancel. I'm like, great. And it's not just that you cancel. This is on you. You cancel. So
right. Because they were thinking the same thing. They were just bold enough to actually cancel, but they're like, "Fuck, I'll do it. I'll do it. Fine." And like, thank God.
I'm like,
Um,
whoa, you freed me.
yeah, no cancellations of plans. The thing is, I usually make plans with people that I really actually probably want to do something, and I don't make many plans. But yeah, I know what you mean. Or if you had to do something, like if I'm at work, like when that trial ended, when that thing settled, man, I don't know if I've ever been that happy. I almost shed a tear. I was
Yeah.
like,
So
"Are you serious?" It was like divine intervention. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was the
so
happiest day of recent memory,
yeah.
probably.
So that is the exact type of scenario I was thinking. Like when you thought you had to do that shit, and then you found out that actually, woo,
None of
eh,
it is going to
like
happen. You have no responsibility. You can take a nap. Oh,
yeah.
that's the best. Yeah,
So,
I
so,
yeah
so the real definition is something that you thought was important that you had to do,
yeah
that you were like, man, this thing cannot be I mean, the trial, there was no
right.
way that wasn't going to go on, and then it didn't go on. See, that's the example that I usually give. Like, we just make shit up in life, right? Like the trial, like everyone just busted their ass doing
Hmm.
research, writing briefs, filing this and filing shit and tracking this and responses and whatever. And then like, oh, we settled. What the?
None of it matters anymore. It's all
It,
gone.
it is gone. And that was probably the most important. They already spent millions of dollars. I don't know how many people working on it
Right. You
on
know.
both sides.
Right. Yeah. Probably 20
Like
people.
things that you really think matter don't matter. Like
Right.
it's
Oh,
yeah.
you know what's a favorite of mine is when I'm working on something really hard, and let's say I'm writing like a brief at work, or and I'm running up against the deadline, and you're working really, really hard on it. You're stressing out about it, and then there's always one point when I'm working on something and I'm writing something where I no longer give a fuck, where I'm just like, it is what it is. I don't care. I'm just sending this thing away. And that is the best feeling ever. It happens when I'm studying for something, when I'm writing something. I'm just doing, I'm freaking out because I'm somewhat of a perfectionist. And so I'm like, oh, is this right? Is this right? And you're playing around with it in your head and blah, blah, blah. And at some point you just let it go and you no longer give a fuck at all. Like at all. It just all like, what? I'm no more. I'm not stressing about this for another second. I'm just turning this thing in. That's my favorite. I love that. It always happens.
Yeah. So one yeah. Well, like I'm actually learning not to give a fuck about many things.
Like the whole way through. It's
Just
like at no
from the
point do I
get
give a
go. Like
fuck.
I just think I just don't care at the get go. Like I
Yeah.
don't let it stress me out. Like I feel like I have other things that are more important. Like, the kind of things that I'm allowing myself to be stressed out by these days is whether I'm actually spending enough time with like people that that kind of thing.
Right.
So it's like, okay, so but outside of that, like all this other stuff, like work is work. At the end of the day, it's not going anywhere. At some point you got to figure out that whether you put 8 hours or 18 hours, that shit is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I mean, yeah, it is what it is. One of this past week, I was watching like these YouTube clips, and these guys that were talking about um, you know the idea that when you get invited to like a party or something, which is maybe
Hmm.
like a house party or whatnot, and people are
Right.
like freaking out and like, okay, what am I going to take? What am I going to bring or whatnot? Like,
Right.
so now I'm curious, what do you think about that? Like, like when you get invited, like, do you stress out about okay, should I take a bottle of wine or whatnot? Like, this
Bottle
is
of wine
somebody
is
that
my go-to. This
is what?
bottle of wine is my go-to. So I just think you can never go wrong with a bottle of wine. I mean, obviously it hasn't come up much during the pandemic, but we've hung out with people here and there. Um, we had like a couple that was kind of our like go-to pandemic couple, kind of I guess a bubble, so to speak. But yeah, a bottle of wine is a go-to for me. Just grab. Here's the reason why. Uh, Neither Geneva and I drink much. So people, when they would come to our house, they would give us alcohol and they would give us bottles of wine. So we just have a bunch of bottles of wine. So we could be invited to 20 places and we just throwing bottles left and right. I mean, I like a good glass of wine every now and then, but I'm not the type of person that needs it with every meal or drinks it by myself. It always has to be some type of special occasion really for me to drink.
Like a real social.
Yeah, it's usually like a real social event. I don't normally just drink wine with my regular dinner, and to the extent that I do, it's always on the weekend. It's never even a weekday. So I used to maybe oh, it's Friday night, maybe I'll have a glass of wine, but I'm just not a big drinker. So we have so much alcohol, and we're people gave it to us. They're just gifts to us, so we just give them right back. We just got wine circulating.
Okay, so so that's one thing. Now, I guess the other piece to that question is, do you think when you get invited to stuff and you don't take a quote unquote gift, you're being judged? Or do you not care? You know what I mean? Like, do you feel like the obligation to take it?
um. Hmm. Hmm.
In
It's
other words, is this party, are you really inviting me or is it conditional upon me bringing something?
right. Like, can I just show up? Am I entertaining enough just to be like me in my coat? Like, what's good, y'all? Like, and they're like, yeah, no, that's interesting. I think for me, I've always had stuff to bring, so it's never been an issue. And also, I'm always usually coming with as a couple, so Geneva's always going to bring something, even if it's not a bottle of wine. Like she's that type of person that you'll never catch her slipping, even if I forgot the bottle of wine, she'd have an extra spare in her purse or something. Like she will always have something to give people. So it hasn't really been much of an issue for me, but I do think that is funny. Like I wonder if I was single and I was showing up to people's houses, would they expect me to bring something if I didn't?
If you
What about you?
invite people, okay,
Do
have you
you
had
bring stuff?
parties? Are you,
Have have I had parties before where people came and
I didn't bring anything.
yeah, so for me, I mean, I'm inviting you. I don't expect you to bring
Okay,
stuff.
okay.
But what about you? Do you bring things to people's houses at all time if you're invited over?
So no, not definitely not.
He's like, this is news to me. Was I supposed to be like, why is no one inviting me back to their house? I thought we had a good time. You just have to keep making new friends. You've burned like 40 bridges.
Oh my god.
That's
no,
hilarious.
not all the time. I mean, to be fair, like I don't actually, even before pre-pandemic, I don't go to people's houses that much at
Right.
all. Like,
Yeah.
so it's not. I mean, it would sound like I have a sad life that I don't have friends or folks inviting me.
No, I know what you
No,
mean. Like we didn't.
but yeah. So the folks that I would say maybe I'll go to their houses wearing people that necessarily expected you to bring something. You know what? But now that I'm thinking, like as I was watching the girls, I was like, huh. Some of these other people that I just meet, like they're not like real buddies, friends that I've known for a while, but acquaintances that just think you're cool, that you talk
Right.
to every now and then and they invite you to their house because they have, and I wouldn't take shit. Like I wonder what they're thinking.
But you didn't bring wine. Like, I don't even know you that well. You ain't even gonna bring me wine. You're just gonna be up in my house like this. Like, it's one thing, like if it's your brother, right? Like you go over to your brother's house. You don't have to bring wine necessarily. Like,
But
cause
this
you
is
just
but the part, so this is where that argument, I get lost with that argument. Why the fuck did you invite me? Like, so
they want wine. They're alcoholics.
so it means it was conditional. You invited me to bring shit. Why did you say that? Like, just say, hey,
Yeah.
what? I would appreciate that. Like, hey, because as you know, I don't drink at all. So it's
Right.
not even like I'm gonna drink the wine, or if I go, most likely I'm just gonna drink water. Like I don't really eat much out anyway because I kind of have a restricted diet somewhat. So it's so it's not like I'm coming to your place to like to get drunk or to eat your food like that. So,
Right.
but
Yeah.
but even if you don't know that, so let's even assume I'm going to come and drink some wine and eat some food or whatever.
Right.
You invited me, and so like I think if you said, "Hey, this is a potluck," yes,
Mhm.
and I'm showing up, we know what the expectations are.
Right.
But to just say, I have a get together, it's July 4 weekend, blah blah blah. Like I'm having a barbecue at my house,
Right.
with a bunch of other folks. Yeah, if I bring stuff, sure. If I don't, yeah,
You're gonna kick me out? Yeah, it's one of those subtle things, right? Like, because when I invite people over, I'm not expecting like if we're hosting, but
yes,
people will.
exactly.
But like, it's this expectation that people at least you should ask, like, should I bring anything? It's one of those things where like people do it just to like say, hey, I'm a good person. Like I asked if I could bring something. I should when someone's like, hey, should I bring something? You're like, actually, yeah, if you could bring like 40 cases of beer and like you just go like ribs and just like give them the menu and just see what they say. They would just not show up. But yeah, it's one of those unwritten rules that, and especially because you don't drink, I can totally see how you're not even thinking about it. And it's also contextual. So if it's a big party where it's like obviously like let's say 30 or 40 people are showing, I don't know if I necessarily need to bring you something. But if it's a couple and they're like, hey, let's have dinner at my place and I'm cooking, I think in that situation we would definitely bring something. Just because
Yeah.
it's like, hey, you're cooking. This is kind of like a thanks for cooking type of thing. And
Mhm.
also like let me help you somewhat. Like let me not just show up and eat all your food and or whatever. But
There's been times when when I actually cooked, and I just literally told people that don't bring anything. That
right.
you know, like I just said that up front, like don't bring anything, um, because people will try to bring like dessert or
Hmm.
stuff like that. Like don't bring, like I'm gonna have dessert as well. I'm gonna have drinks. I'm gonna have whatever, and don't bring flowers because
Well, that's weird. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say on the record that's strange. No matter what the context is.
is it strange? I don't think it's strange actually. Like I don't think it's strange. I think it's fine. It's just that I don't know.
To
Like
someone to show up with flowers and like a teddy bear, I don't know. I think that's weird. But unless you're dating them, why did you bring
no, they
flowers?
will bring it for your house. Like it
Oh,
will
like
be
just so
like
you
a
can have it
couple.
up.
Yeah, it will be like
Okay.
a couple. Like if a couple brought, so for instance, let's assume you guys are are hosting a party and you invite a couple and they just you like, hey, don't bring dessert. We're gonna have dessert. We're gonna have wine. Just come. And
Right.
and I mean, I can see an instance where they're like, okay, they told us don't bring any kind of food. You know what? We're just gonna give them flowers. We know that Geneva likes, I don't know, tulips or whatever, and we just bring it. That kind of
Interesting.
thing.
Okay. Yeah, don't bring anything that I can't eat or drink. I don't need more decorations in my house.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Yeah,
So,
I'm a fan of that. I'm trying to think. Yeah. Huh.
but yeah, like I mean, I just think sometimes some of these cultural norms, just talk about it from the get go and be like, hey, just bring some wine. And I've had those instances before where people will be like, hey, you can just bring like a case of beer or whatever.
Right.
And, and I remember somebody told me that before. I'm like, I don't drink this thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but anyway,
Yeah. No, I
so
hear you.
so this same conversation, right? Like I was listening to, they were talking about, okay, this was a different one. So they were talking about whether it is creepy, right,
Hmm.
to look into folks' home at night. The way that sometimes you're walking by and somebody that has like
Oh, that's so funny.
a nice house and they open their windows. It's
Yeah.
nighttime. So
Yeah.
for me, that I find that really sketchy. Like, why the hell do you do that? Not to throw white people under the bus. I haven't seen many black folks doing that, but
Yeah, good luck with that. Having black people just go to nice houses and looking inside at night.
not just
And
that.
not
I'm talking about even people in the house themselves, like people that own their homes that
okay.
leave their doors open, like they leave their windows open, so that when
Okay.
you're walking by, you see like their nice dining table or whatever.
Are they doing this to show off?
Have you
Or
seen that before? Maybe that's the question.
I so when I'm walking my dog at night, people just have their lights on because they're living. But are you saying people will not even be in the dining room and they just have it on, or
Yeah,
they're
they may,
just
they may or may not be there, but
okay,
so this is what I'm saying. For me, if I'm if I'm at when nighttime falls,
right?
I'm shutting my curtains.
Okay, I
You
got
know
you.
what I'm saying? So whether
Okay,
I'm there or not, I'm closing my curtains.
because people can see in,
Because people can see in.
right?
So that is just it. Like, I can't imagine just sitting there and I know that people are walking by and can see me. Like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah, that is funny. You just like look to the side, catch eyes with someone walking by, and then they have to look the other way, pretend like they weren't staring at your TV and watching whatever you were watching. But
I
no,
watched the 90 Day Fiance.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, exactly. No, I have done that before where I've like caught eyes with somebody like on the computer in their house, and I'm walking my dog. It's so I mean it's open. I just want to see what's in your house.
exactly,
It's
exactly,
there, so I'm
exactly.
gonna look.
So that goes to the core of what I'm asking. Do you think people that do that want people to see their house? Because why on earth are you doing that? Because it's not like you can see outside necessarily, especially at
Right?
night.
Yeah.
You
This is
know, it's
yeah.
people that are outside that will see your house. So, and it's not like you're letting natural light in. So,
Yeah.
there ain't no natural light coming in at night. I mean, I understand in instance where maybe you forgot because you left it on already day, blah blah blah. But that
Hmm.
cannot be something that happens repeatedly. Like, there are people
Yeah.
that just like
They
living
just
it.
they're exhibitionists. Like
Exactly.
they get off on it in some
Yep.
weird way. Like
Yep.
look
They
at my
want to
house
show. They want to show their nice dining table.
and their TV, and they
Yeah.
want to show, hey, I'm cool. I'm watching Game of Thrones. I'm hip. I'm with it. I don't
Exactly.
know. I don't know what it's about. I will say we have. You've never been to our house, but um, we have a huge window that we don't have blinds for. But we're not on the street. This is gonna sound really bougie, but like we're kind of in like a complex, and there's like a gate, and so we're not directly on the street. So anyone who's walking by our house is going to be living kind of in our community, we're not far from the street, but I do notice like when I walk my dog, there are people who, you know, their houses are directly on the street. So, you know, if I'm walking by your house, I can't. It's like looking into a store window. You live right there, and it's people watching TV or on the computer, and yeah, some of them will leave it open, but yeah, for ours, we do. You know, you can see our TV kind of from the street, but we're also kind of back a little bit. But I would be weirded out if I was directly on the street and like random people walking by. Like,
So, so do you think people that like I would look if I'm walking by and I'm like,
yeah, of
nice
course.
house.
You're not going to be like, oh, excuse me. No, it's a public street. I'll look at whatever I want. I'll
Like,
stand there and just watch TV with you until you close the blinds or not. Do what you got to do.
so there was so this clip that I told you I was watching. This guy told this story about how I think he was maybe when he was in high school or his friend or something. This happened to him. Anyway, like so it was one of those situations where this kid when he was in high school and the girlfriend they were trying to sneak around their house,
Okay.
you know, like to go through the back and when they snuck, they walked by the windows in the guy's parents' bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
and the mom was just unassumingly sitting on the bed reading like Us Weekly or something, like not even paying attention. The dad was watching like hardcore porn, standing up and jerking off.
What? Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, if you don't want to see, let people see. Close your blinds. I don't know, but that is wild. Okay, I mean, but that's a level of intimacy you invite when you. Luckily, I guess because I'm on the street, I don't see people's bedrooms usually. It's more like
But
they're.
yeah, I was going to say to be fair, this particular story, the bedroom wasn't on the street. This was the kid that was sneaking. You know what I'm saying? Like past a place that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
if a stranger were to be in there, that would be an intruder. So
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
so it isn't exactly. But I will tell you this: there was a time when I saw someone. This guy was butt naked. It was it was an old white guy like that had his windows everything open, and it was just pacing back and forth like it is in his house.
Are we sure
I
that
was
was his
like,
house?
I
I
was
mean,
like, dude, you are definitely doing this to be exhibitionist. Like you're not.
right,
There isn't any mistake that I left the windows open and I was just walking around naked and I forgot, type of thing. No,
right,
like this is just what you get off of doing this,
right.
and
Yeah. No, he has to. I mean, you don't. Yeah. That's a little weird. I mean, if you're naked in the windows, yeah, he did that on purpose. Definitely
yeah.
getting off on that. He enjoys it every night. And like, to what extent is that illegal? Like, to what extent? Like, when? At what point does that become public nudity? I think there is laws around it. Like, if you're on like on a busy street, you can't just like um you can't just do that. Like, if you're on,
So this wasn't a busy street. This was actually like a super, like a subdivision that was quiet. Like it's very nice neighborhood. Probably has like the houses there are probably like millions of dollars. Like and it was night time.
Mhm.
Now, I mean that's an interesting question because I was yeah. I mean
Because you're
that was,
technically you're in your private property, but a reasonable person knows that if you're in the middle of Times Square and you keep your windows open and you're butt naked, you can't just have the defense, oh, I'm in private property. Like, that people are walking by and that people can see you.
I guess the
It's
question would just be whether you can claim it was unintentional.
yeah.
Like
And that dude, even with the best lawyer in the world, that brother's going to jail. So he knew if it was on a very busy street, if that situation was on a very busy street.
I
But
actually doubt that. I mean, the kind of lawyer that the people that live in this neighborhood will be able to afford, they will get them off. I mean, like rich people don't go to jail. Like if your black ass did that,
ooh, yeah. No, I know. Yeah. So
like
speaking,
so
I
this
was.
was like an old white guy too, like probably in his 50s.
He would just have to pretend like he
Yeah,
doesn't.
he was gonna, yeah.
He was like senile. I mean, old 50's not that old. But if he was like even older, maybe he could just say he was senile. But I was gonna say, speaking of lawyers, have you been paying attention to the George Floyd trial?
Yeah, yes, a little bit. Like I haven't been, I mean, I know that they've been streaming them live but I've kind of like been following.
Mm-hmm.
I've been following it. I mean, yeah. What are you gonna say about it?
I was just gonna say I've been watching some of it. I've been streaming some of it while I was at work and stuff. And I guess the prosecution is putting on their witnesses now, and some of them were very compelling and I thought very effective. I think ultimately it's going to come down to the science, whether what not only if he gets convicted, but like of what he gets convicted of is going to come down to the autopsy reports and all that scientific stuff and what exactly caused George Floyd's death. But I thought the prosecution put on some really effective witnesses. I mean, they had a professional mixed martial artist MMA guy who was a witness who watched it, and so he was talking about his training and why he was so angry when he saw Derek Chauvin on George Floyd's neck, and because he knew that he was doing something wrong. And then they also had a paramedic who was one of the witnesses there too, and you can also hear her in the videos screaming like what are you doing, like check his pulse, like what the hell. So I thought those were pretty effective, but some of them, man, some of it was very emotional. Like there was a guy, older black guy in his 60s, I blanking on his name, but he was a witness and he was one of the guys there. I don't know if you saw the video, if you remember, but he was basically trying to get George Floyd to just he was trying to help save his life. He's like, man, just get in the car, like kind of just basically like just do exactly what they say, all this stuff. He was there the whole time. And then he was pretty calm when he was giving his testimony. And then when they showed the man, the video, the body camera video from one of the officers, when they went back to the man, the witness, he was just in tears and was like breaking down. It was very emotional.
Yeah. I saw. I mean, I didn't watch the videos. Like I saw clips, just
yeah, but you didn't see the whole thing.
like very short clips. I mean, I don't even know if I would say they're up to a minute. But I also read about how I don't know if it was 19 or 21-year-old guy that was at his store.
Yeah.
It was just like I can like it was just like I think it was basically saying he wished he hadn't called the cops that day.
Yeah. Or brought up the counterfeit bill.
Yeah, it's like because what we're talking about is $20, man. Like
$20. $20. Yeah. Yeah.
What is interesting is the defense that George Floyd's what the defense is going to argue. Like you could tell that they already teeing that up. They were already trying to say that the folks that were gathering around were causing some sort of stress,
right?
And that he did exactly what he was trained to do. Even though there was a cop, I believe, that came and said that is outside of regular order.
Right.
So
yeah.
I am not convinced that he's going to be found guilty.
Yeah. I mean,
I think it have different counts. So
right.
I mean, it probably wouldn't be first degree. I mean, it definitely wouldn't be.
Definitely won't be first degree. I don't even know if they brought first degree. I know they have second and third degree murder charges.
So, but my question is, why shouldn't that be first degree? Even like, why should I know that people talk about there has to be some planning and whatnot. But also, first degree doesn't necessarily have to mean that you plan days ahead. Like
Hmm.
when you were there for 9 minutes, what did you think was going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, I think first degree is a really hard standard. I don't remember it exactly, but legally, um, it's a pretty high standard. I thought, there does have to be some type of premeditation and like
So that's what I was going to
it,
say.
it's kind of
There's
like,
definitely some premeditation in this.
but I think premeditation is more like, all right, it's more like I'm putting my knee on this person's neck and I'm going to kill him. Like I don't think it was his. He woke up and he was like, you know what, let me kill George Floyd today. I really don't think that's what it was. So even if that would be so hard to prove, that I wouldn't legally bring that charge. But
So
in
yeah, I don't think that was what it was either. Like I don't think. I mean, how the heck would he know that it was going to make George Floyd idea? It was going to get called. I mean, that's
Right, but I
yeah.
guess I'm saying like I don't think at any point he was like, I'm gonna kill this guy. Like I don't think. I
But
think he was
but
wildly reckless.
yeah, but I don't think necessarily first degree murder necessarily requires that you think you're going to kill someone. That's what
I I think
that's
it does though. I think
okay.
second. You might be talking about second
Maybe I'm looking at it.
degree. I think it's second degree where it's more like it doesn't. Second degree is more of like heat of passion. I think.
Yeah, this.
Uh, and first degree is more like premeditated. Like I'm gonna kill that motherfucker. Like
So yes. So I agree. Premeditation, but I guess what I was trying to get is there are ways where they've defined what premeditation means too.
hmm
It's not premeditation doesn't necessarily have to mean that it could be a split second
hmm
premeditation, and that would
right. Like
still
you could
count.
all of a sudden be like, I'm gonna kill this guy. Like I see what you're saying. There was, and I'm blanking on it because I'm not in uh, 1L crim law class, but I know what you mean. I think there is like it could happen there. Like the
Yes,
premeditation doesn't have to be days before. It could
it
happen
could happen there.
in the moment. But I still think it's a tough standard for them to make. I think second degree is more like heat of passion, where it's like you those cases where it's like someone's so angry that they mean to kill you, but it's like an immediate reaction to something and it's a heat of passion crime. That's more like second degree. And then third degree, I think that's more like the reckless standard, where it's like you weren't saying I'm gonna kill this person, but you were so reckless that it doesn't matter. Like
So, so I'm looking at the greatest source on earth, which is
your outline
Wikipedia.
from Wikipedia. Okay.
So, and I know
Yeah,
that,
we
and I
should
know
probably
that,
look at that before I start making up shit
yeah,
on
and I
here.
know that states are also different. And
Right.
this is just an interesting exercise that we're doing. So it says first degree is any intentional murder that's willful and premeditated with malice aforethought.
Yep.
So now it now goes into what is malice aforethought, right? And
First
that is, intent to kill.
so far. Let's
So
see.
there are four states of mind. Like one of them is intent to kill,
Mm-hmm.
intent to inflict serious bodily injury. So that is what I was talking
Mm-hmm.
about. And extreme reckless disregard for the value of human life. That's the third one. That's what you were talking about. And
Right.
the final one is felony murder. So just looking at this, there two, three are definitely that. And quite frankly, I also think the felony murder thing is also a thing because what this guy did goes outside the bounds of what is acceptable as from a police officer. So it means it's a police officer that is committing a felony and somebody died
Mm-hmm.
at the course during the course of him committing the felony. I think he should, I think the reason why they didn't bring that the first degree is just because he's a police officer. And if this was something that happened in the streets. For instance, if me and you were fighting,
Right.
I punched you, put you in a headlock, whatever, slammed you to the ground,
Mm-hmm.
you overpowered me at some point. You put your knee on my neck for 9 fucking minutes, man. You're
Mm-hmm.
gonna go like, they're gonna say, okay, yes, you were defending yourself, but there became a point where that's not a thing.
Right. And I
So
think, yeah.
but anyway, I mean, I know this is, I don't want to get too deep into that, um, except that we just did. But
Yeah, in that situation, I would differentiate and say, well, we were fighting, and so there's more of a story you could tell where I was trying to kill you because of the fight. Um,
yeah, but we were fighting. I mean, isn't that whole thing where just because you're defending yourself, somebody punches you doesn't mean you can get a gun and shoot them like
yeah,
so.
yeah. So I'm saying in that situation, just the fighting, though, I would argue if I'm, Derek Chauvin's lawyers and trying to differentiate that situation, like, well, that situation, that person was because they were fighting, it's easier to infer that they were trying to kill the other person by keeping their knee on their neck. Um, I mean, you could try to make that argument with Derek Chauvin, like, oh, you were quote unquote fighting or tussling with George Floyd, and this was somewhat like revenge for that, but it's a little bit harder to make, I think. Um, but with all that said, it's none of this stuff is going to be a slam dunk, and people need to understand and realize that. But I will say, there is some stuff about he's a cop, so people look at it in a different context. But I do think we are thankfully in a different world in 2021 where we were maybe even 4 or 5 years ago. And I think that at least in this case, the whole narrative of, oh, he's a cop and like, they have tough jobs. Nobody's trying to, I mean, no one's really, that argument's not happening. Like, it might be happening from his lawyers, but like our collective consciousness is like, even conservative people are like, nah, bro, we gotta sacrifice this brother, because it's like everyone's kind of on the same page where it's like, bro, that can't happen. And it looks like in this case, the prosecution is actually prosecuting the officer. It looks like they're actually taking this seriously. I don't know if that means that there will be, a conviction or where the conviction will be, but it looks like a real trial. And I think that's because of the work people have been doing for the past decade or so in trying to change how we see and think about these situations.
I totally agree. I mean, yeah, I think the one thing that I would agree with is this looks like an unbiased, like a real prosecution, not the kind of nonsensical prosecution that the district attorney in Ferguson tried to do with that officer that killed Michael Brown.
Right.
I mean, it was obvious that they weren't trying to do anything.
Right.
So
even with Trayvon Martin, it was like, you guys
yeah,
clearly don't believe any of this stuff. Like, you don't actually want to
you don't want.
prosecute George Zimmerman. You're
So
just doing this because of public, you're just trying to like appease people, but you aren't taking this seriously. Whereas like, I think everyone here seems to be taking it seriously.
but with that being said, I mean, conservatives outlets, man, they are out with with whatever they're saying. Like, well, the guy smoked weed, he had this, he caused his own death, all of that stuff. So,
Right.
you know, it didn't take long. Black Lives Matter is this, Blue Lives Matter is that. So I don't know. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's found not guilty.
If he's acquitted of everything, I'm leaving the country, because they're going to burn it down, as they should. Because it's like, if you have a professional MMA fighter and a paramedic screaming at you on tape, for 9 minutes and 29 seconds to get off this man, and we have it on video, everything that's happening, and even the body camera footage. I don't know if you saw this, but
Nope,
the
I did
body
not.
camera footage before they had him on the ground, I heard some conservative outlets talking about it like, oh, this isn't going to be good when they show this because it's going to show that George Floyd in some way deserved what happened to him. And then I see it, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, how does this? It's not like he was punching and kicking the officers or anything like that. It was like he was basically saying like he wasn't um you know complying in the sense, but he was like not, he wasn't aggressive or violent. He wasn't complying because he wasn't moving when they said to move and stuff like that, but he was pleading with them and saying he was claustrophobic and he seemed scared, but nothing about him seemed like he was violent. Nothing about him seemed like he was trying to harm the officers in any way, shape, or form.
Look, man,
It was
that's
wild.
look, man, that's what I'm saying. Like, for you to get any conviction, you just need one person on there that listens to, one of those outlets. And you know how
Yeah,
polarized America is. Like, you just need one person. I mean,
right.
how easy would it be to get that person? I
I
don't think
know.
it's that difficult. So, for that person to just say, hey, you know, it doesn't matter. I mean, Walter Scott, it was the feds that
Yeah,
got him. The state did not get him.
right. It's a hung jury.
So, you know, that's the thing. I mean, you could have 10, 11 people that says this is obviously guilty plea, and then you have that one holdout. There's nothing to do about it.
Yeah, it is a weird system we have, the jury. But I will say that I think the defense has done well so far. I mean, I'm sorry, the prosecution has done well so far. We'll see what the defense has to say. It's, you're kind of watching like, what's the rebuttal here? Like, what are you gonna say? I mean, it's all on tape. You have I just think the witnesses couldn't have done a better job in the moment at that time of conveying people who are trying to save someone's life and the officer not letting them and not doing anything. I mean, it's just clear that they're like, what are you doing? Like, you're like, they're acting how you would expect a citizen watching a cop slowly kill a person would act. But at the same time, they seem very level-headed, and it's really, I think, effective in telling the story of what happened, and also it's just there on video. I mean, there's just not a lot for the defense to work with here. I mean, okay, he was high. So what? Half the people in the courtroom are probably high right now. Like, people in America get high. And I think like that just isn't that compelling either. I mean, to say, but the thing is, I think, and I can't remember what charge it is, but I think in one of the charges, maybe it's second degree murder and higher, but it's like you have to say that the neck compression, it was like, but for the neck compression, he wouldn't have died.
Yeah.
And so there, so there's going to be all that stuff, all that legal crap, and
Look,
you know the drill.
we always talk about legal stuff and rules and laws. Those are the reasons. I mean, shit that we make up are the reasons why we can't get anything done.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know what we saw.
Right.
For whatever reason, the system is such that that guy is not going to get prosecuted, even though there is absolutely no doubt about what is done. The same
Right.
thing with Walter Scott. The same thing with, I mean, if you look at,
Eric Garner.
yeah,
It's like, we all saw it. We're looking at it. What do
yeah.
you
So,
mean? What are you talking about?
so I'm not, I mean, Trayvon Martin, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Tamir Rice,
Right. Yeah. I
like
mean,
12-year-old, like, I mean, and you will find people come around and say, oh, it was holding, the officer that was holding a gun. But it is legal to carry a gun in
mm-hmm.
the state. Like, so why did he get shot? before it was even asked in the first place.
Immediately,
Yeah,
immediately.
you
Why
didn't even
are,
ask.
and if you think he has a gun, why are you driving up to him? You remember the video? It's
Yeah,
like he drives up to him, like he's giving him food at a fucking drive-through. It's like, why are you even driving up that close? If you think he has a gun and he's so dangerous, you're putting yourself in fucking harm's way for no reason.
yeah. It's
If you think the person has a gun and then, you know, you come up on him, you're like, oh, I feel fear for my life. Why are you that close in the first place? You don't give him a chance to even explain the situation. It's pretty wild, but yeah, something needs to happen. I mean, I hope that he gets, you know, I really hope Derek Chauvin gets convicted of something. There just needs to be something that shows other officers that you just can't kill people and walk away and say, oh, well, that's just part of my job and I just did what I had to do. You know, even if this guy goes to jail for just, you know, if he goes to prison for 5 years or whatever, at least that's better than just these like no indictments and all this other bullshit where they just get fired and go to another police uh force in another city or something. Or they got to have something. I mean, there just has to be something. Like I don't think he, you know, he didn't wake up that day and say, oh, I'm going to kill George Floyd, I'm going to kill black people. But even if it was just something that was reckless, you still killed somebody. You know, if I'm driving a car and I don't stop at a stoplight or something and I accidentally hit someone and kill them, I'm going to jail. I'm not going to, oh, I had a tough day at the office. You know how it is. Yeah, we know. And then they just don't indict me and I fucking go home. Someone still died. At least
yeah,
a
man.
manslaughter charge. Like it's ridiculous.
I don't
So,
even know about the manslaughter, man. Like to me, that's just, you know, that's like ridiculous. Like he shouldn't get a manslaughter. He should definitely be getting some sort of murder charge and be spending a significant number of years in jail. Like you can't, you that shouldn't. I mean, what message are we sending? It's one thing if you say every time somebody gets shot, it's like a split second decision. There is no
mhm.
split second decision here. This is 9 minute decision. So like are we? I mean, we're going to now start saying this is a split minute decision. Like, what are we talking about here?
Mhm.
So yeah, I yeah, but we'll see. We'll see.
Huh, yeah. Interesting. Did you know that the only states that have third degree murder are Florida, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's so this is one of the few. I think he's gonna get I'm saying this right here. I think he's probably gonna get like third degree murder. I don't think he's gonna get second. I don't think he's gonna get higher than third degree murder if he gets anything. I'll just say that. But we'll see.
Well, before we before we log off, I just saw something I came across. DMX is in vegetative state after heart attack.
What? Holy shit.
That sucks,
Wow.
but
That's awful.
yeah.
Uh, let me see. Hold on. DMX suffers an overdose, hospitalized in grave condition. That's terrible. DMX, um, wow. Yeah, jeez. He's one of the best hip hop artists to ever do it. I was actually watching a documentary on him not that long ago, and I forgot just how successful and good he was, but he had like 5 albums that were just incredible in a row in a very short amount of time. So, you know, thoughts and prayers to DMX for sure. He's provided us a lot of good music. I know he's had like a tragic life and was kind of in and out of jail and, you know, was with drugs and stuff and has kind of, I don't know, he hasn't really been able to um, get much stability since he was big in the early 2000s. So, but that's terrible.
Yep. Well, on that note, we have come to the end of the show.
Yeah.
Any last words for the folks?
Uh, hope everybody is doing well. Hope everybody's just finding what makes them happy. You know, thoughts and prayers of DMX. Listen to some DMX. Throw them some positive vibes. But yeah, that's about it.
All right, y'all. You be all right.
All right,
Until
you
next
be all
time.
right. Let's see. And I'll end it.